Welcome to Chapter 2 on how to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. This chapter is on National Sustainable Development Goal plans or National Sustainable Development Goal strategies. Now, for a long time in some circles, the idea of government planning was deeply frowned upon. Isn't that how the old centrally planned economies collapsed? But I want to emphasize in this chapter that in order to achieve goals as complex as the SDGs, we certainly need plans, not rigid planning of every sector of the economy down to micro detail and with the rigidity, not that kind of plan, but basic strategies that look ahead, that force us to think over a 15-year time horizon to ask the question, how can my country or my city achieve the new Sustainable Development Goals? And I want to emphasize the importance of these national sustainable development strategies or these national and urban sustainable development plans as key mechanisms for moving forward. Now, the first point is that every one of these sustainable development goals, certainly ending extreme poverty by the year 2030, ending hunger by the year 2030, ensuring universal secondary education for all by the year 2030, ensuring universal health coverage, fighting climate change, making sure that everyone has access to modern energy services, urban sustainability, or protecting the marine and the terrestrial ecosystems. Not one of these is simple. There's nothing straightforward about the Sustainable Development Goals. Let's put it straightforwardly, these are complicated. These require actions across many sectors of society. By that I mean not only governments, but also business, also civil society, academia, leading scientists. Everybody's going to have to participate if such complex goals are to be achieved. And frankly, it would be hard enough to achieve 2 or 3 goals, but the Sustainable Development Goals cause us to focus across the 3 big pillars, economic, social, and environmental, and within those pillars on many, many deep, complex, but very worthy and very important challenges. And as the member states of the UN have emphasized time and again, this is a package deal, because it really isn't even possible to say, well, we're going to have quality education, but then not take care of health. Because if children aren't healthy, they're not going to be able to achieve all that they can in learning. It doesn't make sense to say we're going to fight poverty, but we're not going to fight climate change, because how are we going to keep poverty near zero or eliminated if climate change massively disrupts the global food supply, for example? So this is a package deal, which means that the planning is even more complex than ever. And another point that absolutely should be obvious, but is very important to stress, the time horizon. We're talking about 15 years. No government today should be in power 15 years from now. There should be new national leaders, there should be turnover. So the time horizon for the Sustainable Development Goals is beyond the lifespan of any particular administration, any particular prime minister or president, and any particular government that's elected in a current election cycle. So we need plans and strategies that transcend normal day-to-day politics, as important as that is. All major political parties should say, of course, we're on the deal. This is a global objective. This is a national objective, not a partisan objective. And we need strategies that help to see our country through to success for the SDGs. Now, here's another complexity. When the 193 member states were debating how to set the goals and the targets with those goals. They chose 17 goals, all worthy, big number. Again, stand in front of a mirror, you'll get them in order, I promise you. But they chose a lot more targets, 169 targets to go along with the 17 goals. Now, what the member states did emphasize is that those global targets are indicative. Every country has its own national circumstances. Pay attention to the national priorities. Understand among the 17 goals and that big list of 169 targets, what are the real challenges facing the United States or Ghana or Tajikistan or any other part of the world? The challenges that are the big priorities will depend on geography, on state of development, on the history of the country and the nature of the country's relations with world markets and with the other regional economies as well. So taking those 169 targets, part of the idea of a national strategy is to say, these are the ones that really count for us. Now consider any one of these major goals. Take SDG 4, for example, which is on quality education for all. Consider a low-income country in sub-Saharan Africa. Perhaps today, 25 or 30% of kids 16 or 17 years old are completing a secondary education. Perhaps 3/4 are not. But according to the Sustainable Development Goal number 4, there should be universal completion, 100% completion by 2030. Think about what that means in terms of strategy. That means more schools, more access, more trained teachers, an expanded budget. It means deploying every innovative technique now of using online education, distance learning, distance training, smartphones, tablets, and every other kind of device to accelerate the uptake and the quality of education in the country. That requires a rollout plan. It requires a financing model. It requires international partnership. For low-income countries, it requires development assistance. And I could go through any of the SDGs. SDG 3 on universal health coverage. Same story. How to get from the current state to the 2030 goal requires a 15-year strategy, a financing model alongside, the ability to tap into new technologies, the ability to tap into global partnerships and global support. Take a challenge for the United States, pretty much a challenge for all high-income countries, how to make the transition from a fossil fuel-based energy system to a near zero carbon-based energy system based on solar, wind, geothermal, hydropower, carbon capture and sequestration, and other low-carbon energy technologies. Boy, that's not something that you do from one day to the next. Again, 15 years, even in that context, may be too short. Maybe we're really talking about a 30 or 40-year transition, but without a plan, forget it. No chance unless there is a strategy. Now, for any one of these strategies, it's extremely important that there should be milestones, there should be metrics, data to measure where a country or a city is now, where it's heading, whether it's on the right trajectory, and data then used for feedback to know, are we on course? Are we off course? What kind of time horizon should we be pursuing? And are we falling behind schedule? And if so, what might be done about it? So data for sustainable development will be crucial. When we think about national plans or city-level plans, context is crucial. For low-income countries, ending extreme poverty, creating decent jobs for all, quality education will be essential. For middle-income countries, Almost inevitably, the challenge is avoiding the so-called middle income trap, where a country remains stuck above poverty, but not able to make the progression to high income levels and prosperity that the country wants. And for that, quality of education, training, innovation, science, and technology are key. For many high-income countries like my own, the United States, the big challenges are fighting high and often growing inequality, social exclusion, and of course, environmental unsustainability in the forms of climate change or destructions of ecosystems. So the starting point for every nation or city or region is, where do the Sustainable Development Goals really count for us? What are the priorities? Where do we start? Where are we going? And how can we get to these goals by the year 2030? Just take a look at some of the innovative plans that are already underway. Here you're looking at the cover of one NYC, one New York City plan, a sustainable development plan of Mayor Bill de Blasio of New York City, my own city. A wonderful integrated strategy. Download it online. You'll see how a city of the complexity of New York City takes on these very broad interconnected challenges. Of course, here you're looking at the cover of China's 12th five-year plan, and China will soon be adopting its 13th five-year plan. Boy, these five-year plans have done wonders for rapid growth in China, for fighting poverty, and now the 13th five-year plan is going to put a great emphasis on adding environmental sustainability and resisting the rising inequalities that have characterized China's economy in recent years. Now you're looking at the cover of the Danish government's plan for energy transition. This is a remarkable plan, again available online, of how Denmark plans to make a transition to a zero carbon economy by mid-century, tapping into Denmark's access to renewable energy, wind power famously, and other renewable energy. And here you're taking a look at the European Union's Roadmap 2050 on the European Union's broad direction and strategy for making the transition to a low carbon economy. These are all examples of how to make a basic strategy at the national level or at the city level to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. A complex and new challenge, one that is going to require new ways of governing, multi-stakeholder approach, new ways to organize governance within the executive branch of governments around the world. Exciting, worthwhile, and absolutely vital.